When I first started scripting this video, and I did start scripting it before I even started writing the one I did yesterday about my thoughts 2 days post-election, my opening line was, "Hi, I make YouTube videos, I'm a feminist and a lesbian, and I make conversational commentary videos about both of those things, and we're in hell because Donald Trump just got elected for a second time." Something in me has, I think, resolved a bit since then, though. I mean, I'll be honest, I only even had it in me to shower and film yesterday because of the kindness and connection that I had with so many of you in response to my post about the election the night that it happened. I already had a feeling that I probably was going to make a video wanting to address how I was feeling, and that really solidified in me with that, and then I made that video, and I am so thankful that I did. Because hearing from so many of you was so helpful to me, and it has really helped to strengthen my resolve. I don't know how much good that resolve will even end up being, but I'm glad that I have it, and I am grateful to you for so much of it. It feels useful to have. If you didn't already watch my post-election video, I basically just talked about how we lost. We lost because we lost. We lost because the other guys got more votes than we did. I talked about how it appears that we are pretty much really outnumbered. And that, to me, that outnumbering suggests that this is a time where we should be trying to focus on putting aside differences. Not in a centrist, come together with your Trump-supporting family sort of way. I don't give a shit if you never talk to your Trump-voting dad ever again. Good for you if you don't. But in an, oh my god, can we maybe, for once, just not spend the next 4 years to, few decades as the left, just fucking eating each other? Can we maybe connect with the people who want the same things that we want now that the Kamala Harris as president thing that some of us wanted as a least bad alternative is fully off the table? Because continuing to hold these grudges is not going to be helpful in either the short term or the long term. I especially worry in discourse about what I'm seeing referred to on electoral Twitter as race depolarization. Something that is being reported on before all the votes are even counted and without actual hard data about who exactly is included in categories like Latino men, for example, who Trump seems to have made gains with. Just one of several groups that I have seen demonized in the last few days following the election. Truly heinous shit being said about them. Fantasies about deportation, about calling immigration, about undocumented family members of Trump voters. That's not only happening about Latino men, though it is primarily where I'm seeing it. I mean, anybody who isn't directly, from here, in theory, would be at risk from the mass deportation policies that Trump has been touting, and his supporters obviously are either fine with or wholeheartedly approve of. But considering how Trump handled things like his Muslim ban last time, we have a pretty good idea of which immigrants he's talking about when he talks about immigration being a problem. We already know who would be affected by these things, not white immigrants. Even the strictest version of Donald Trump's mass deportation policy is not going to include the Peter Thiels and Elon Musks of this world. So fantasizing about it is stupid and cruel, and frankly, I think pretty fucking racist. So is, and it's fucked to even have to say this, but it's all over Twitter, blaming Arab and Palestinian Americans for the resounding loss that Democrats took on Tuesday. As was pointed out in my comment section, many people being blamed for and getting cruelty thrown their way about this loss also have family and come from the area that is being so devastated. They have a direct and immediate tie to this genocide and the suffering that it's causing in a way that huffy liberals throwing out, "This is what you voted for, Dearborn Heights," jabs on Twitter over quote tweets about escalations in the war in the Middle East are not thinking of when they're saying that shit. Do not fucking do that. I'm in no way here to tell you that we need to be gracious losers to Trump supporters, but I am saying that we don't need to join hands with them and be gross and racist and mean and delight in seeing this kind of devastation. I just can't wrap my brain around that. It is mean. A lot of it is just genuinely mean-spirited. And I also will say, in the interest of nuance, in the interest of not supporting those liberals who are doing that shit now, but in supporting, liberals as a category, I also feel like a lot of the, "Oh, you should have fun voting for genocide because you have no solidarity, you whiny white liberal" shit was also mean-spirited and intentional misrepresentation of the position of most Democrats voting for Kamala against Trump. That was also mean, and it was usually not being touted so much by people who directly had family and loved ones in the area. It was also white Americans throwing it at each other. And they were being mean. I think people use politics as a huge excuse to be mean all the time. And I think the time for doing that is not right now, not with each other. We can be mean to Republicans, we can be mean in the midterms when we get to vote against them, but for now, we should ignore them, and we should focus on each other, and we should focus on each other with kindness and empathy and compassion for each other. We should focus on what we can do, and we should ignore the reasons that we are being given to hate and distrust each other. The election is over. We lost. Not every important measure on the ballot lost. A couple of the ones that I covered here on this channel did. We did not pass that minimum wage increase for servers here in Massachusetts. It lost 64 to 34 because restaurant owners got to dump so much money and misinformation into that campaign. And also, I'm thinking as I'm looking at how much of my progressive ballot here in Massachusetts didn't quite pass, a lot of people stayed home since they're saying, oh, I'm in a safe blue state, my state doesn't matter, and as a result, their state becomes less blue or it loses opportunities to become bluer. Trump voters are not going to sit out an election. They're going to go and then they're going to vote in the low information way that they have been told by a restaurant lobby who dumped a bunch of money into telling them, please don't make me pay my workers, for example. But I want to follow up on those abortion ballots. As I mentioned in my election response video, the Florida majority failed on a technicality, which is total, absolute, and I think undemocratic bullshit, because it failed even though it had a majority of votes.
Yeah? You think it's bullshit? Yeah?
They require a 60% majority for something enshrining into the Constitution like that, and the rule that they need to get a 60% majority apparently did not itself even get 60% of the vote when it passed. 57 to 42% in favor of abortion, but it still failed. Heartbreaking. That is so, so close. I can't imagine what it would have felt like to get so close and then lose it by so little. I'm really, really sorry, and I'm really angry on your behalf. I know it probably isn't very helpful for me just to say that I'm furious, but I just still want to say it. I'm furious about this. I'm really mad. So that fucking sucks in Florida. Another state that got to vote on abortion access this week was South Dakota. I talked about this in my video about all the abortion ballots. I did not really like South Dakota's bill because it was very permissive to the government and to pro-forced birth enthusiasts. And for that reason, though I did say once it was on the ballot that I thought that you might as well go ahead and vote for it to enshrine some protection to abortion, some reproductive care groups actually did not endorse this bill. They said that it was too permissive to the government. It would have allowed the state to interfere in the second trimester in some cases and to ban it in the third trimester altogether. So while this measure did fail, it was 58 no to restoring partial abortion access and 41% yes. I do have to imagine some of the people who might have voted no were voting no in the hopes of voting for a stronger measure in the future next time, and that maybe a better bill could pass. Though that's probably just liberal cope. Maybe South Dakota really is pro-forced birth, and if that's the case, I'm very sorry to those of you who have to live there. And Nebraska, our final abortion bummer of the night on Tuesday. Nebraska had 2 different abortion ballots to choose from. You might remember if you watched my abortion ballot video before the election. One to protect and restore abortion access all the way up until fetal viability, as was the case pre-Roe, and one to enshrine the current prohibition on abortion into the Constitution after the first trimester. Nebraska's was 55-49 in favor of forced birth, and that now is constitutional shit for the state. This is the only state where they managed to put a competing abortion ballot in front of their voters, and since it succeeded, I worry that we might see a lot more of that in the future as a tactic. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm sure that there will be lots of double abortion measures, and they'll be worded confusingly, or people will think because they're voting yes for one, they shouldn't vote no on the other, or whatever, and it will be a huge mess, and I will hate it every time, like I hate it here for Nebraska. People in those states who end up needing reproductive care will likely have to travel, something that will continue to put stress on clinics in other states with slightly more permissive abortion laws. Abortion will be inaccessible for people in these states who need childcare and accommodations in order to take off of work for multiple days. Abortion access networks are absolutely vital for this. They help people to travel and figure out where to go. At this point, though I doubt any of us here in the Nuance Corner actually already were, please do not donate to the Democrats when they text you begging you for money this week. You can give that money to abortion networks. Check them for yourself if you're finding one in the wild, but I put a link in the description below that a Twitter mutual I trust retweeted on election night if you're looking for somewhere to put maybe some Democrat money that you earmarked for a good cause or whatever. States that did pass their bills but didn't have issues already with legality are Maryland, Montana, Colorado, and New York. Nevada's passed, but it apparently has to be voted again in 2026 and pass then in order to take effect. So it is a step in a solution that will take a lot of time, but it is at least a step. And Arizona also passed an abortion access bill, which is a huge success following their fight against that Civil War era bill that I talked about in my first video about these abortion measures. Arizona, like Missouri, will now have a constitutional right to abortion. Though it doesn't mean abortion clinics can just simply reopen and resume regular business, Missouri doesn't really have any infrastructure left at this point, and lawsuits are going to need to be filed and won once this is officially in the Constitution in both states. But Arizona and Missouri did huge work on Tuesday. They both voted for this fight, and the fight will continue across even states that didn't have an opportunity to vote for abortion this week. I think these mixed results on abortion compared to Kamala, where she didn't take all of these states that passed abortion as a blanket the way that I would assume that she would, is really frustrating. Donald Trump, of course, was the architect of Roe versus Wade's fall. He thinks that it was a beautiful thing, but he did manage to successfully distance himself from that because it took effect during Biden's presidency. Democrats had high hopes that voters would make the connection between Trump and the abortion bans and see voting for Kamala as voting for abortion protection. That was so much of her stump speech. But people either didn't care, or maybe they justified their vote for Trump because they felt like they were offsetting it by also voting for abortion protections, maybe, in some of these states. There are a lot of mixed results from Tuesday. California, for example, just declined to pass a proposition that would abolish slavery. Won an opposition that didn't even have anything running to oppose it. Just, like, it wasn't the way that these abortion bans were. There wasn't some huge campaign against it. Just, even in California, liberal coastal elite California, some Americans are like that. Some Americans, most Americans want that, I guess. Which has been the weirdest and most difficult thing for me to try to understand about all of this, that it's something most people apparently want. We didn't even take the popular vote, but lose because of the Electoral College. We lost, again, because we're outnumbered. And in my last video, I talked about how we should take that outnumbering and not continue to snip at each other or to destroy any potential coalition for the future, that we shouldn't hate each other on their behalf. I still believe that. I still believe everything I said in that video. It was like a day ago. But since my last video, I've been thinking about something else too, which is that while yes, it has been enormously rare in recent years for a Republican to win the popular vote, it is not fully unprecedented. We just got used to it not happening. To my feminists, my gay people, my trans people, we have never not been countercultural here in the United States. We had a liberal moment for a few years here in the United States, one I think a lot of Trump's success that we see might be direct backlash for. But it makes me feel more determined when I think about the fact that as much as it absolutely makes me fucking despair to think of Donald Trump winning the popular vote with the kind of campaign that he won, absolute monsters like George W. Bush and Ronald Reagan have also won the popular vote in the past. And I am sure that the lesbians in 2004 or in 1984 felt a very similar way when they looked at the map of the Electoral College. And they were doing that with a Democratic Party that wasn't even really running on their rights yet. So while it is isolating and hard and scary to reckon with the fact that so much of the rest of the country is even worse than you had imagined, or at least even worse informed, though I still do not feel particularly obligated to grant any grace to anyone who voted for this man, it's also a feeling a lot of people fighting this fight have already had. It's a feeling that we are not alone in, not now and not throughout our history. I wasn't bullshitting with the threat to democracy stuff. I am very afraid of what kind of damage Donald Trump is going to get to do over the next 4 years. I don't even feel assured that 2028 is going to be fair enough to get a Democrat back in the office, but And I know that that's alarmist, and I want to be clear that even if I think that, I will still vote even if they do rig it. But I'm not going to sit here and project more confidence in, like, the American experiment or whatever as a whole than I actually feel. But I will say things have been bad before. Even if they haven't been quite bad in the particular way that Donald Trump is bad this time around, Americans have repeatedly voted for hatred and have repeatedly marginalized people who they could aim that hatred at. Like I said in my last video, it's not something that this country is any better than. It's not something that we're just now doing for the first time. We built this country on colonization and genocide, and then we didn't let the people who already lived here even vote in our elections. The fact is, the people who are going to be most harmed here in the United States by a Trump administration are likely to be immigrants. That is just a fact. Especially those who are undocumented, but after decades of attacks on so-called anchor babies, the path is already being laid for them to revoke birthright citizenship, which I personally think of as one of very, very few things about this country that is, like, cool and good. So of course they want to take that away. Obviously, there also will be people in other countries who are horrifically impacted by our government's actions, as they already are. The thing about undocumented immigrants, especially taking so much of the hatred that bothers me, is that they literally can't vote. They will be subjected to the worst of this, and they had no voice at all in whether or not it would happen. And then now, even liberals are laughing it off, fantasizing about calling ICE on them, which, to be clear, is an evil thing to do and an evil thing to fantasize about. Response to realizing that we live in a world that might be a little bit more evil than we had liked to tell ourselves is not to become more fucking evil in response. Making my video yesterday really helped me a lot. Everything has felt incredibly surreal since late Tuesday night, but scripting and working on that video helped me to feel more normal. And then, again, hearing from so many of you in response really helped me to feel something even better than normal, something I only really get out of the fulfillment that I find in making these videos. I got to feel helpful. I got to hear directly that I'm not the only person who has been struggling with self-destructive impulses in the wake of all of this, which I did already know on a cerebral level, but made me feel a little bit less lonely to have confirmed. I got to hear that it was helpful to hear it framed as not hurting yourself on behalf of people who would like to see you hurt. Getting to hear from so many of you, getting to realize what a similar boat we are all in with our feelings about this election reminded me that we are not newly outnumbered. We're just newly reminded of it. We are all still here, and we owe it to each other and to ourselves and to the people in our lives to try to keep being here and to try to keep showing up. I love how much the Nuance Corner feels like a place where I get to show up. I just want to express how much it means to me to get to have this and to get to share it with you, even in a bad week, even when I'm chewing my lips too much to want to put on lipstick. Even though this particular video is on the shorter side, I do have more stuff up my sleeve, both about the election and not, but I just wanted to update on those abortion bills and then also kind of shake out a couple more of my thoughts as we head into this weekend, which is just like, I don't feel any need to continue to be angry at people who are on my side. I don't want that over the way that we are treating each other and the way that we are treating ourselves to be my focus for the next 4 years. We lost. I'm not going to be sore about that to anybody but a fucking Republican. And as I have made clear, I comment block those here in the Nuance Corner. I love you very much. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for making me feel better this week. I hope I was able to make you feel at least a little bit better at some point in these two videos. This one's on the shorter side, but like I said, I just had already been promising on updating about abortion, so that's what I wanted to do. Let me know if there's anything that you want to talk about. I kind of feel like keeping people company is a useful thing right now, which is another reason why I was like, I'll just make a second video this week. Speaking of extra videos, I also upload videos a couple extra times a month on my Patreon. I have not done a new one since the election. We're all here together. My lovely Patreon friends are also here watching this video, but they will get a Patreon video tomorrow. Hoping to get my Patreon video out this weekend. Over there, I'm going to respond to some comments. I was kind of checking out doing like a Q&A thing over there on the Patreon. Thank you so much. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. Thank you to everybody who has just hung out with me and watched my videos, liked them, shared them with people. I really appreciate it. I love you a lot. I'll see you soon.